My best friend stole my work and took my $55,000 bonus. Then the CEO begged me to fix his disaster. Hey, so I, 36 male, have been friends with Chase since college, roommate sophomore year at a big state school in the Northeast. I tutored him through statistics 2011 because he was about to fail out. 8 months ago, Chase got laid off from his marketing gig. Third job in 4 years, behind on rent by 2 months, credit cards maxed, talking about moving back in with his parents at 35. So, I got him a job. I walked into Andrea's office. Andrea was our director of operations at Velocity Logistics and used 12 years of credibility on one ask. Told her Chase was sharp, adaptable, a team player. May have oversold his technical skills a touch, but I figured he'd be useful. Set expectations with him privately. Show up, learn, don't embarrass me. That's the deal. She hired him because in 12 years I'd never asked for a single favor. The one time I cashed in a chip, it was for Chase. I remember feeling calculated about it, like I'd placed a smart bet. Paula even said, "That was a really good thing you did," and I figured it was for a while. Let me tell you about what I was doing while getting Chase employed. For 12 years, I ran infrastructure at Velocity Logistics, publicly traded, which meant leadership cared way more about optics than engineering. I rebuilt the entire routing system the previous year, saved the company $7 million in 4 months. The new system cut fuel costs by 23% and shaved a full day off delivery times across 3 time zones. I'd also requested a second engineer and a real on-call rotation 3 separate times in writing. Denied every time. Asked for a funded fix to the system's known cascade vulnerability. Denied. Asked for attribution on projects I built, optics. I documented every request and every rejection because I don't complain. I build a file. Andrea took credit for the routing rebuild, quarterly meeting. She stood in front of 400 people and presented her initiative. Used my slides, my numbers. Even quoted a line from my report word for word like she thought it up in the shower. I didn't let that slide. Sent a reply all to the deck distribution list that afternoon with my original report attached, my commit history, and a 1-line note attaching source materials for reference. Happy to walk through the methodology. No drama, no accusations, just the receipt sitting right there for 400 people to see. Andrea never acknowledged it. Didn't have to. Everyone who opened that email knew. And Chase, my best friend, the guy I'd gotten hired 3 months earlier, gave her a standing ovation from his ergonomic chair. Now here's the thing. I always noticed, kept meticulous records. Every commit, every report, every late-night fix logged with timestamps. That wasn't paranoia, that was standard practice. I told myself, just keep being good at your job, it'll pay off. I wasn't ignoring any of it, I was letting it stack. Turns out the file was the only thing that paid off. Here's the thing nobody tells you about watching your best friend get handed a title and a fat check. It's not the money that stings, it's watching them change in real time. We were about 6 weeks out from Black Friday. Volume was already ramping up fast. Management was terrified of losing people. Amazon had poached 2 of our best guys the month before, so they announced the Strategic Retention Initiative. We're taking care of our key players, Andrea told us in the Monday meeting, flashing that shark smile. We value your loyalty. Chase got promoted, senior innovation lead, corner desk near the windows, closer to Andrea's office, and within a week he was a different human being. It started small. He started restructuring communication flows, which is corporate for, I'm going to carbon copy leadership on everything and make sure my name is at the top of every email chain. He created a Slack channel called #InnovationPipeline and posted in it constantly, mostly links to Forbes articles and TED Talks, never anything he actually built or did. Then he started talking about me differently, not behind my back, to my face, in front of people. First time was in a stand-up meeting. I was explaining a patch I'd run over the weekend to keep the system stable during a traffic spike. Chase cut me off mid-sentence. Yeah, so that's the reactive approach, he said, leaning back in his chair with this new energy he developed. Legs spread wide, arms behind his head like he was holding court. What I'm working on is a system where we don't have to keep doing these Band-Aid fixes. Band-Aid fixes. The patch I ran that weekend kept $2 million worth of shipments moving. But sure, Band-Aid. I didn't flinch, just said flat. That patch preserved $2 million in revenue over the weekend. Happy to walk you through the architecture whenever you're ready. The room went quiet. Chase laughed it off. I went back to my notes. A few days later, he sent a company-wide email. Subject line, rethinking our approach to systems resilience. The body was 3 paragraphs of him saying a lot without actually saying anything. The kind of writing where every sentence sounds important, but none of them mean anything concrete, followed by a bullet list of initiatives he was spearheading. Every single one of them was a repackaged version of proposals I'd submitted over the past 2 years. proposals Andrea had rejected. Chase just changed the titles and slapped his name on them. The worst one, my load balancing script that I'd written and pushed to our internal GitLab at Velocity Infra Load Balancer 6 months earlier. He copied my code into a fresh repository and recommitted it under his own name, then presented it in a demo as something he'd been developing. The original repository with my commits was still sitting right there on GitLab. Anyone could have checked. He just bet nobody would. My own code with my authorship buried under his fresh commit history. I didn't pull him aside. I pulled the original commit logs, screenshotted the metadata showing my authorship, saved everything to my personal drive, forwarded archived proposals to my personal email. Then I filed a ticket with Information Technology Security. Repository cloned and commit history rewritten without authorization. Original at Velocity Infra Load Balancer. Need review. Ticket TS4471, timestamped on the record. But I did mention it to Chase casually over coffee in the break room, just us two. Those initiatives in your email, those were my proposals from last year. The load balancing thing, the redundancy audit, I wrote those. He clapped me on the shoulder, big grin. Yeah, I know. I'm just giving them new life, getting leadership to actually pay attention. You should be thanking me, honestly. I'm making your ideas happen. Making my ideas happen, like he was doing me a favor by stealing my work and putting his name on it. I just said noted because it was literally in a dated file. Then it got worse. He started assigning me tasks, not asking. Assigning, he'd ping me on Slack. Hey Nick, can you pull the uptime numbers for my report by end of day? Or, need you to run a diagnostic before my meeting with Andrea tomorrow. First time I replied in the channel, not direct message. Hey Chase, I don't report to you and this isn't in my scope. Loop me in formally through Andrea or it doesn't exist. Screenshotted it. He never assigned me anything in writing again. Started phrasing them as favors. I declined those too, in writing. Every single one. The smug comments piled up. In a team lunch, someone asked about the Atlanta warehouse recovery from 2 years back, the one where I drove 14 hours and rebuilt 3 servers on my own dime, saving them $2.1 million. Chase jumped in before I could answer. Yeah, that was a crazy situation. Classic example of what I call hero culture. One guy holding everything together with duct tape. My whole goal is to make sure we never have to depend on that again. He turned to me. No offense, Nick. You're amazing at the fire drill stuff. I'm just trying to build something where we don't need fire drills. I looked at him. That recovery saved $2.1 million in 48 hours. If that's duct tape, I'd love to see what your pipeline delivers. Quiet at the table. Chase laughed too loud to cover the fact he got checked. Moved on to talking about some podcast. The younger engineers noticed. A few gravitated toward Chase. He'd take them to lunch, talk career strategy, hand out copies of the 4-hour workweek. One stopped coming to me with technical questions and went to Chase instead. Chase would Slack me the question privately, get my answer, relay it back like his own. Basically a game of telephone where Chase skimmed credit off everyone. I caught it because the kid thanked Chase in a team meeting for his help with the database issue. Chase nodded modestly. The database issue I solved at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, while Chase was posting Instagram stories from some rooftop downtown, noted, 2 weeks before everything blew up, we had an all-hands meeting. 50-some people crammed into the main conference room, overflow watching on screens in the break area. Andrea was presenting the Operation Peak Battle Plan, how we'd handle the Black Friday surge. Then she turned to Chase. Chase, walk us through the technical readiness piece. Where are we on system capacity and failover? Technical readiness assessment. Chase couldn't assess whether a universal serial bus goes in right side up on the first try, but he stood up with this. Slick confidence. Projected his slides that contained data I'd compiled, numbers I'd run, analysis I'd done for an internal report 2 weeks earlier. He'd repackaged my work into his template with his name on it. And then he started talking about me, not by name at first. He said, we've got some legacy processes that are held together with frankly duct tape and prayers. A few people chuckled. Our systems team has been in maintenance mode for years, patching, reacting, firefighting. That's not a strategy, that's a treadmill going nowhere. I was sitting in the third row. I could feel people glancing at me. Everyone in that room knew I was the systems team. Chase kept going. He clicked to the next slide, a comparison chart. On one side, reactive maintenance culture. On the other, proactive innovation strategy. Under the reactive side, bullet points describing everything I did. Under the proactive side, bullet points describing everything Chase wanted to do. The old way of doing things, staying up all night fixing problems, running on caffeine and hero culture. That's not sustainable, Chase said, looking directly at me. Our senior engineer, Cooper, who'd been here almost as long as me, went completely still. I saw him start typing on his phone under the table. Nick's great at emergencies, but we need people who can plan, not just patch. He let that hang in the air for a second, then glanced at Andrea. She gave him a little nod like they'd rehearsed this. The room was dead quiet. My phone buzzed. "Cooper, is this real right now? Are you seeing this?" Andrea jumped in without missing a beat. "Chase is exactly right, Nick." She turned to me, and I swear 50 heads swiveled in my direction. "The work you do matters. It does. But Chase represents the strategic direction we're investing in going forward. That's why we're expanding his role. He's going to be leading our innovation pipeline. Try being useful like him. Think bigger picture instead of just keeping the lights on." I raised my hand. Quick clarification. Slide 4 data is from my capacity report dated October 3rd. 3 initiatives on slide 6 are proposals I submitted last year. Declined for budget. Happy to share originals. Dead silence. Chase's smile locked. Andrea blinked. Cooper texted, "King." Andrea recovered. "We can discuss attribution offline." She moved on, but 50 people heard it. 50 saw Chase's face. I didn't need to win the room. I needed the record corrected once. After the meeting, Chase came up to me in the hallway, big smile, clapped me on the shoulder like we just finished a pickup basketball game. "Hey man, no hard feelings about that, right? It was more of a general culture thing." He smirked a little like he was replaying his own performance and enjoying it. "You'll be fine. You're built for the support stuff. Not everyone's meant to lead. We'll see how that plays out. Seriously, you're my guy. You know that. It'll be good for both of us." Both of us. Like we were partners. Like he hadn't just painted a target on my back in front of the entire company. I went back to my desk, not sulking, calculating, reviewed my employment contract that evening. Standard salaried, no after-hours clause, no on-call rotation. Every late night save for 12 years was voluntary, uncompensated, unformalized. Now I read it with exit pricing eyes. Checked market rates for infrastructure consultants that night. $250 to $400 an hour. Good to know. Cooper caught me in the garage. "You know what he's doing?" "Yeah." "Plan? Let him have what he wants," he nodded. "Remind me never to play chess with you." Next 2 weeks I kept the system alive but stopped volunteering beyond contractual scope. No more clearing printer jams. No more refilling toner. No more answering Slack at midnight unless there was a formal ticket. Didn't announce it. Just quietly stopped being the invisible janitor for an organization that treated me like furniture. And I documented everything Chase touched. Every system he accessed. Every repository he cloned. Every meeting where my work appeared under his name. Then one night, 2 a.m., middle of a massive traffic spike a week before Black Friday, I was in the server room running the steps I chose to run to keep everything from crashing. I'd been doing scheduled maintenance earlier that evening, and the spike hit while I was wrapping up. Could have walked out right then. Almost did, but old habits die stupid. Chase was there too. Technically, he was at his desk hyperventilating because the monitors were all red, and he had no idea what any of it meant. I stepped out to grab a printout, and that's when I saw it sitting face up in the printer tray outside Andrea's office. The one she used for leadership packets. If you don't want something seen, don't print it where interns pick up mailers. Urgent retention allocations confidential. Chase, $55,000 retention bonus. Title, Senior Innovation Lead. Nick, $4,200 appreciation stipend. Title, Senior Systems Architect. I read it 3 times. $55,000 for the guy I personally got hired 8 months ago. $4,200 for the guy who built the system they were all standing on. That's not a rounding error. That's your best friend watching you drown and buying himself a lifeboat with your rope. I didn't feel surprised. I felt clear. Photographed it front, back. I walked back into the server room. Chase was still panicking, screen still bleeding, system still falling apart. I set my security badge face down on the desk. Drafted a resignation email to Human Resources. Timestamped 2:47 a.m., 5 lines. Effective immediately, property returned, badge on desk, laptop keys in drawer, no company devices in possession, access revoked, no negotiation requested, none offered. Sent it to drafts, packed my personal bag, 1 backpack, nothing that belonged to them. Nick, Chase's eyes were wide, terrified. "Why are you packing your bag?" "Shift's over, Chase," I shouldered the bag. "Good luck." "You can't leave. We're in a priority one. Andrea will deal with you. I don't work here anymore." I walked out the double doors, past the lobby where the motivational poster said, "Teamwork makes the dream work," and into the cold November air. Hit send on the resignation email in the parking lot at 2:52 a.m. Screenshot the sent confirmation. Forwarded both to my personal Gmail. My phone started buzzing before I pulled out of the lot, turned the volume off and drove home with the windows down. Behind me, the entire shipping network for the East Coast was going dark. Not flickering, not limping, dark. Trucks frozen at loading gates in Jersey City. Sorters in Atlanta stopped mid-gr. The tracking system for over 3 million packages gone, wiped from the map like they never existed. I didn't break a single thing, I just stopped holding it together. And after that resignation email, I had zero access to anything until the contractor agreement was signed the next day. When I got home at 3 a.m., I poured a coffee, the good stuff, the fancy pour-over beans I'd been saving, and sat on the back porch. Dead quiet neighborhood, just crickets and the occasional hum of a truck on the highway, probably one of ours. Probably stuck somewhere because the system I built was eating itself alive. My phone kept lighting up on the table. Andrea, 14 missed calls. Chase, 22 missed calls. System alert, critical failure, system alert, database compromised. The system I built wasn't broken by design, it was temperamental. When traffic ramped past a certain threshold, you had to run a specific set of manual rebalancing steps in the right order, or the routing tables would corrupt and cascade. I'd flagged this to management for 3 years. Wrote a 14-page proposal. Andrea glanced at the cover page. Not in the budget, Nick, just keep it running. So I did, and I wrote detailed step-by-step instructions for the emergency fix. Filed them on the shared drive where anyone could find them. Chase didn't read documentation. Chase read the 4-hour workweek. Chase watched YouTube videos about founder mindset, while the system he was supposed to manage was melting down around him. At 3:30 a.m., a text from Andrea. Nick, pick up the phone now, we are hemorrhaging money. If you don't answer, I'm calling legal. Legal? Their move was to threaten a guy who walked out with one backpack and nothing that belonged to them. I didn't touch their systems, didn't delete a single file. I just left. If that's enough to break your whole operation, that's not my problem. That's your infrastructure plan. At 4:15 a.m., Paula came downstairs, saw the coffee, the phone going berserk, the look on my face. Did you get fired? Better, I quit. I told her the numbers, $55,000 versus $4,200. Chase, Andrea, the declined proposals. 12 years. The entire disaster recovery plan for $1 billion company that valued me at $4,000. Told her about the memos sitting in the printer tray, about Chase hyperventilating at a desk while the monitors went red, about walking out with one backpack and nothing that belonged to them. Paula didn't panic. She picked up my phone, read Andrea's frantic texts, lawsuits, police, career destruction. The whole menu of empty threats scrolled through Chase's 22 missed calls. Then she looked at me with this expression that was half pride, half about time. Let it burn, she said, kissed my forehead, went back to bed. At 4:45 a.m., the tone shifted from threats to begging. Andrea, Nick, I know the numbers look bad, we can talk. Then 5 minutes later, Chase just made it worse. He tried some command from the internet, and more systems crashed. I actually laughed out loud. The man was Googling emergency fixes and running them on a live production system, handling millions of active shipment records. That's not reckless, that's negligence with a search bar. By 5:30 a.m., a warehouse supervisor in Jersey I'd known for years texted, Bro, what happened? 47 trucks sitting here, drivers sleeping in cabs, gate won't open. Felt bad about him. Good guy, ex-Marine, always brought donuts on Fridays. But this wasn't my fire anymore. I went to bed at 6 a.m., slept better than I had in years. By that afternoon, less than 12 hours after I walked out, the situation was already spreading beyond the building. Velocity handled last-mile shipping for 3 major retail chains. If you ordered anything online on the East Coast in the last 5 years, one of our trucks probably brought it. When our system went dark, it wasn't just our problem. By that evening, Twitter lit up with screenshots of blank tracking pages. Where's my package was trending. Customer service lines hit 3-hour hold times with nothing to tell people, because the system that would have fed them answers was the same system that was dead. 2 of Velocity's biggest clients activated service-level agreement breach clauses and started diverting shipments to competitors. The stock took a hit pre-market. The board called an emergency session. By the next day, the story had leaked beyond the industry trade press. A mention on the evening news, the works. A major electronics chain had lawyers drafting a breach of contract suit north of $8 million. That kind of client bleed doesn't reverse with an apology email. I was eating scrambled eggs when a black sedan pulled into my driveway. Company plates. Not just Andrea. She had a human resources representative in the passenger seat and a manila envelope in her hand. I found out later it contained a draft return offer letter, a temporary contractor agreement, and a non-disclosure agreement. The chief executive officer had apparently ordered an in-person outreach. Andrea looked like she hadn't slept in 2 days. Hair up in a clip, no makeup, blazer wrinkled. First time I'd ever seen her look even slightly human. The human resources representative stayed in the car with the engine running like a getaway driver. She knocked. I opened it. Coffee in hand, sweatpants, t-shirt that said, I paused my game to be here. Nick, we need to talk formally. Chase tried to fix everything and made it worse. He restored the wrong backup, overrode half our settings, changed logins and didn't write them down. The system's in worse shape than when you left. I took a slow sip. Sounds like an innovation problem. You should ask Chase to leverage his strategic vision. Stop it, she held up the envelope. The chief executive officer authorized me to offer a return package. We're losing millions. I know, I said. I saw the retention memo. Andrea photographed it. She went white, full stop. That was a draft. We were going to discuss your... Chase got $55,000. I got $4 million. I'm the one who got Chase this job, walked into your office and vouched for him personally. And you two decided the guy who talks about my work is worth 13 times more than the guy who does it. I saw it on her face. She knew she screwed up, but she was too deep in panic mode to care. I can fix the money. $30,000 right now. Just come fix it. No, Nick, I'm begging you. I will lose everything. Yeah, that tends to happen when you build your entire operation on one person's back and then spit on him. We're done here, Andrea. Her face hardened. We'll sue. Negligence, dereliction. I'll make sure you never work in shipping again. I didn't break anything. I just stopped volunteering. And my lawyer's first question will be why a salaried employee with no on-call clause was your only disaster recovery plan for 12 years. Take that envelope back to the car. She stood there for a few seconds, then turned, walked back to the sedan, and they pulled out without another word. The human resources representative didn't even look up from her phone. I updated my LinkedIn to open to work. By that evening, a couple of recruiters had reached out. A competitor's vice president of engineering I'd met at a conference 2 years ago messaged me. Saw the news, saw your LinkedIn, we should talk. A former colleague texted, people in the industry are connecting the dots about who kept Velocity running. Your phone's about to blow up. 12 years of quiet leverage and walking away was all it took to cash it in. Thursday afternoon, a day and a half into the meltdown, I got a call from a Virginia area code, the chief executive officer. His assistant had apparently been trying to reach me through human resources, then through Andrea's replacement on the incident bridge before someone just handed him my personal number. Met him once in 12 years. Holiday party, 2-second handshake. He laid it out fast. $12 million in projected losses for the week. The board's audit committee had called an emergency session. 3 department heads were on a rolling incident call that hadn't ended since Wednesday, and multiple people had now told him I was the only one who could stabilize the system. It's not a pay dispute, I said. It's a valuation problem. He told me Andrea had been pulled from operations. Chase had been locked out of all systems and placed on leave pending review. Then he asked what it would take. I wasn't asking. I was setting the price. I don't want the job back. If you want me to fix this, I come in as an independent contractor, my own company, my terms. $400 an hour, minimum 100-hour retainer, paid up front. I work alone, no meetings, no check-ins. Silence on the line, long one. That's $40,000 for a week, and it's a bargain compared to the $55,000 you gave the guy who broke it. He didn't argue. Contract signed by 6 p.m. My lawyer caught a non-compete buried in paragraph 14 that would have blocked me from the shipping industry for 2 years. Nice try. Killed it. $40,000 hit my account that night. That Thursday evening, a CO worker in operations called, sat near Andrea's office, thin walls. She'd been holding on to something for weeks. Nick, I need to tell you something about Chase. She told me everything. The private meeting started, within Chase's first month. He pitched himself to Andrea as my translator. Told her I was brilliant but lacked executive presence. Said giving him more visibility would indirectly benefit the whole team. Then it escalated. Chase started feeding Andrea a narrative. Told her the systems team, meaning me, was stuck in the past. Said the company needed someone between the technical work and leadership to make sense of it all. That someone was conveniently Chase. He was making himself the middleman for my own work. Every idea I'd ever shared with him over coffee or in a text, he'd been cataloging them, repackaging them with new titles and his name at the top. But the worst part, 3 weeks before the retention bonuses, Chase sat in Andrea's office and made his closing argument. She heard the whole thing through the wall. Chase told Andrea, Nick's not going anywhere. He's got a mortgage, 2 kids. He's too comfortable to leave. You don't need to retain him with money. He's retained by fear. Put the real money where it makes a difference. Put it on me. I went back through my documentation that night. The Slack direct message from March 12th, where Chase asked me to just send over my load balancer repository link. The April 3rd text about my redundancy audit for reference. The screenshot of his company-wide email where every bullet point mapped one-to-one to my archived proposals, dates, titles, all of it. The GitLab commit log I'd already preserved, the information technology security ticket I'd filed, and the whole time he was telling my boss I was too scared to leave. Every moment clicked into place. The all hands where he tried to humiliate me wasn't random. It was a setup. He was building a case, showing leadership. He was the vision and I was the labor. The presentation with my stolen data wasn't laziness. It was strategy. He was showing Andrea he could take my work and make it look like his, which was exactly the con he'd been running. The no hard feelings right in the hallway, the shoulder clap, the it'll be good for both of us. All calculated. He thought I wasn't paying attention. I was paying attention the entire time. I sat in my kitchen for a long time after she hung up. Paula found me staring at the wall. What happened? I told her all of it. She was quiet for a while. Then I never liked him, Nick. The way he talked about you, always complimenting you, but in this way that made you sound small, like you were good at your little thing. I just never had the proof. She was right. I gave him the benefit of the doubt too long, but I never once looked up to him. Walked into Velocity Friday morning. 7 a.m. Visitor badge this time. Names changed, details tweaked. 12 years of keeping this place alive and I needed a visitor badge to get through the front door. Ghost town. 2 junior employees who looked like they'd been crying. The war room smelled like stale pizza, burned coffee, and fear. Whiteboards covered in frantic diagrams. Someone had written "Call Nick" in red marker and circled it 3 times. Andrea's office was dark, door closed, nameplate still there but the lights off. Word was she'd been pulled from operations the day before. Chase's desk was cleared out, laptop gone, badge turned in. His motivational calendar, "Hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle," was in the trash. The irony of that one almost made me laugh out loud. Before I touched anything, I walked the floor. Monitors showing blue screen. A sticky note on one, "Do not touch." Chase broke this one too. The hallway whiteboard had a timeline of the outage. The 4 a.m. entry, "Nick won't answer, exploring alternatives." The 6 a.m. entry, "No alternatives found." I took a photo of that whiteboard, not out of spite. I just wanted proof. A billion-dollar company brought to its knees, and the whiteboard basically said, "We have no one else." That's worth remembering. Sat down, got to work. The root problem was a known Cascade vulnerability I'd flagged in a 2021 incident report. The same report Andrea shelved. Chase made it catastrophically worse by forcing a full system restart at the worst possible time, scrambling the routing data. Then he restored the wrong backup, overwrote 6 months of configuration settings, and changed a bunch of admin credentials during his panic without writing any of them down. The system was broken, the settings were wrong, and half the access points were locked behind passwords Chase couldn't remember. Not just a crash, an archaeological dig, but I knew this system the way you know a house you built with your own hands. I had a disaster recovery snapshot I'd been keeping current on a separate drive. Standard practice for anyone who actually manages infrastructure, even if Andrea never approved the storage cost. I knew the exact sequence to bring everything back in the right order. You couldn't just flip everything on at once. Had to restore the database first, then routing tables, then the application programming interface layer, then sorter connections. One piece at a time or the whole thing would cascade again. 6 hours straight, no breaks, no calls, just me and 12 years of knowledge doing what it does. At 1:15 p.m. the status screen started flipping green, one by one. 3 million packages reappeared. Sorters in Atlanta moving again, trucks in Jersey rolling. I could hear cheering from the war room 2 hallways over. Someone literally whooped. I didn't react, kept my eyes on the screen until every indicator was green. Then I did one more thing. I wrote a small program that handled the emergency balancing on its own. No human needed, 20 minutes of work that would have prevented this entire disaster. The thing I'd proposed for 3 years, 3 years of not in the budget. And I just did it in 20 minutes sitting at my old desk with a visitor badge clipped to my jacket. Done by 1:47 p.m. Printed my invoice. Walked it into the chief executive officer's office. Put it on his desk while he was on the phone with what sounded like a very angry board member. He held up a finger, wrapped up the call, and looked at me. "You're done. Everything's running. I automated the balancing so it handles itself now. You won't need anyone babysitting it at 3 a.m. anymore. Even a senior innovation lead could keep it going." He leaned back in his chair, studied me for a long moment. "We're prepared to discuss an executive role, Nick. I'm serious. Real compensation, equity package, a seat at the leadership table." I laughed. Not bitter, for real. The kind of laugh where you finally see the whole picture. And it's actually kind of funny how dumb everyone else was. "Sir, you had that guy for $110,000 a year. For 12 years, you let his best friend convince you he wasn't worth keeping. You let someone who couldn't tell a server rack from a bookshelf decide he was worth $4,200, while she threw $55,000 at a guy whose biggest contribution was a broken Slack bot. You don't have a talent problem, you have a loyalty problem, and I'm way too expensive to fix that. Walked out of that building for the second time in a week. Sun was out, November air, dead leaves on the sidewalk. I stood in the parking lot for a minute, just breathing. No alerts, no Slack pings, no one needing me to save something they refused to maintain. The quiet felt weird, almost uncomfortable, like hearing your own heartbeat after years of standing next to a jet engine. Called Paula from the car. It's done. She didn't ask how it went. Didn't ask about the money or what I said to the chief executive officer. Just come home. I'll make you a real dinner with candles and everything. I sat in the driver's seat for another minute after we hung up. 12 years. 12 years of being the guy who shows up, delivers, and keeps receipts. And the only person who ever saw the full picture was the woman waiting at home with candles. Started my own consulting firm a few weeks later. Just me, a laptop, and 12 years of knowing where every weakness hides in a logistics network. The fallout at Velocity came in waves. Board retained outside counsel. Formal investigation. Enterprise-wide access review found Chase logged into systems he had no business touching, including the repository where my code lived. It slapped a change freeze across every production environment. Andrea, administrative leave, then quietly terminated. Mutual separation agreement. No severance beyond what was contractually owed. Chase terminated for cause. Gross misrepresentation of qualifications. Unauthorized system access during the outage. His reference file got flagged. Corporate human resources code for will confirm his dates of employment and nothing else. 2 of their top 3 retail clients pulled the cord. An 8-figure hit before the quarter closed. 2 vice presidents followed Andrea out the door. My first client was that same competitor whose vice president of engineering had messaged me the day I updated my LinkedIn. He called and said, "We watch that happen in real time, and we need to make sure it never happens to us." Fee was $250 an hour. They didn't blink. Within a year, I had 4 clients, all Velocity competitors, all paying me more per month than Velocity paid per year. Hired 2 engineers, former Velocity guys who got caught in the layoffs. Good people who'd been undervalued just like me. No innovation leads, no synergy meetings, just smart people solving real problems and getting paid like it matters. 6 months later, Velocity got bought by a private equity firm. Stripped for parts, fleet sold, client contracts auctioned off. 2 of them landed with my clients, which was a nice bit of irony. The system I'd kept alive for a decade finally died, replaced with off-the-shelf garbage. Most of the good people were gone within 90 days. The chief executive officer got his golden parachute. Andrea landed at a mid-sized firm doing operational consulting, posted about it on LinkedIn, excited to announce my next chapter. 200 likes. I didn't add to them. Chase texted me once about a month after everything went down. Just, "Hey man, can we talk?" I stared at that text for a long time. Back porch coffee. Same spot where I'd watched my phone explode the night I walked out. Thought about the couch he slept on for 6 weeks. The breakfast Paula made him without being asked. The stuffed elephant he gave my daughter when he showed up at our door with 2 garbage bags of clothes and nowhere else to go. She still had it in her room when everything went down. My kids running to the door yelling "Uncle Chase" every time his car pulled up. Then I thought about him in that all-hands meeting. That pitying little smile while he told 50 people I wasn't leadership material. Him sitting across from Andrea leaning forward saying the words, "Nick's too scared to leave, don't waste the money on him." About the guy who got him the job. The guy whose couch he was sleeping on 8 months earlier. Blocked the number, didn't type a word. Some bridges don't get burned, they get erased like they never existed. The warehouse supervisor from Jersey texted a few weeks later. The drivers took up a collection. Gift card to my favorite steakhouse with a card. "Thanks for keeping the lights on all those years." That card sits on my shelf. I look at it every morning and remember the people who actually do the work always know who's holding things together. Even when management doesn't. Even when your best friend doesn't. I kept the old badge in a desk drawer at home, right next to a copy of the $40,000 invoice. I look at them whenever I negotiate a contract, not to gloat, just to remember. They didn't miss me until the screens went red. Funny how that works. As the curtain falls on this personal story, let us look at the bigger picture. The events described are not just about one workplace betrayal or one friend who chose ambition over loyalty. They reflect a pattern that appears again and again in modern organizations, and even in personal relationships. The quiet worker who keeps everything running is often invisible until the moment the system collapses. In many environments, the person who speaks the loudest about vision is rewarded, while the one who quietly carries responsibility is expected to endure out of loyalty. The tragedy of this story lies not only in Chase's betrayal or Andrea's short-sighted leadership, but in the culture that made such behavior possible. one where appearances matter more than substance, and where dedication is mistaken for weakness. For years, the protagonist believed that competence and patience would eventually be recognized. Instead, those virtues were exploited until the moment he finally stepped away, and the entire structure revealed how fragile it truly was. The collapse that followed was not sabotage. It was simply the inevitable result of neglecting the people who actually hold things together. And this is where the story quietly shifts from being about them to being about us. Because many of us have lived some version of this experience. Maybe not in a billion-dollar logistics network, but in families, workplaces, or friendships where sacrifice slowly becomes an expectation rather than a choice. Society often romanticizes endurance. We are taught that loyalty means staying silent, that harmony means avoiding conflict, and that walking away somehow makes us the problem. But the truth is more uncomfortable. Sometimes the most responsible act is to stop carrying what everyone else refuses to maintain. When someone finally draws a boundary, whether by exposing the truth, refusing exploitation, or simply leaving, it can look dramatic from the outside. Yet that moment is rarely impulsive. It is usually the final step after years of patience, documentation, and quiet attempts to make things fair. As the storyteller, I cannot help but notice how many people in the narrative only understood value when the system went dark. The drivers who sent a thank you card understood it. The wife who said let it burn understood it. But the leaders and the so-called friend only recognized it when millions were already lost. That moment reminds us of a difficult reality. Respect that appears only after collapse is not respect, it is desperation. So perhaps the real lesson is not about revenge, or even justice. It is about clarity. Knowing when loyalty becomes self-betrayal. Knowing when silence protects a system that harms you. And having the courage to step away before your entire identity becomes the emergency fix for someone else's poor decisions. Which raises one difficult question that many people quietly face in their own lives. If you discovered that the people benefiting from your loyalty secretly believed you were too afraid to leave, and were counting on that fear to keep using you, would you stay and keep the system alive? Or would you walk away and let them finally face the consequences of their choices?